Okay, there are several different types of regression, and I think you should be able to determine them mostly by the shape. And this is going to happen when you type it in your calculator and you go to Zoom 9. Zoom 9 would be Zoom Stat, and that would allow you to see the regression that you've typed in. Of course, you'll have to make sure that your scatter plot is on. We'll go through those steps later. The first one, I believe, would be somewhat obvious. This one is going to be linear. Now, it's important to point out that not only can it go this way, it could also be a negative slope. And they're not always perfect lines. Sometimes they're a little scattered, but generally you'll be able to tell if it's linear. This next one is quadratic. And there's one curve in it, one major curve. Now again, they're not always lined up in a perfectly good curve. Maybe line was not the proper word to use there, but they're not always in a very good curve. But sometimes they could do like this instead. Sometimes they could do this, and you'll only see half the curve. Those are easily confused with the next type, which is exponential. And these generally don't increase very quickly at first, and then they take off. There's another type of exponential graph that is actually known as exponential decay. It's essentially the same thing as this, only it's flipped around horizontally. So it starts out really high and then it comes down and levels off. This next one is logarithmic. Now this next one is a polynomial function, and it's a specific type of polynomial function, and it would be cubic or polynomial regression. And there's all kinds of ways these could be shaped. They could go like this. They can start at the top and go down. Or they could be similar to the one that you see here, and they just kind of level off and go back up. And whenever you find the equation for that, it's going to be x to the third something. Those are kind of rare. And this next one looks an awful lot like some of these, but I want you to realize that if you were to pick this thing up, you could paste it onto itself and it would be periodic, which makes it trigonometric. There's another word for that though. Sinusoidal. Now again, you could pick it up and carry it over and it would be a repeating graph, and it would go like this. You can usually tell the difference between these two based on the context of the problem. For example, it's sinusoidal, periodic, trigonometric. Those are all synonymous. It's one of those if the problem deals with things that are constantly repeating, like the flow of the tide. The tide's going to come in, the tide's going to go out. The tide's going to come in, the tide's going to go out. Or if it's the temperature during the day. Temperature raises at noon, and then in the night it falls, and then it raises, and then it falls, and it raises, and it falls, and it's a constant repeating pattern. Those would be sinusoidal.